It's finally time to do something I meant to do a while ago, and that is, oops, I forgot the key. Hang on a minute. That is install my new toy. Oh yeah. Well, what is my new toy, you say? Well, and we have ourselves a new radiator and 2 new fans. Not sure if I'm going to use the fans because the one fan that I'm using already is actually a much larger diameter than these two, so I'll see how I go. Also, these fans are designed to pull air through the radiator, and I don't think I'm going to have enough room to mount these on the inside of the engine bay side of the radiator, just because I'm kind of limited for room there, where the fan that I have on that guy in there is one that pushes the air through, and I've heard that pushing the air through is not as effective as pulling it, but you know, we'll see. Either way, I'm going to an aluminium radiator and it should help keep my temps down a fair bit. So fingers crossed we can get this to fit in there. I kind of measured it up a little bit and guesstimated the size, but we'll see how we go. Alright, so before I get started, I just got home from work, so I'm going to let this thing sit for a while. I just drove it home. I'm not going to open it up while it's hot, because that would hurt. So I'll see you in a bit. We'll get back to trying to disassemble this radiator out of here without making too much of a mess, and trying to mock up the new aluminium one in its place. The reason I am changing radiators, I've said it a few times already, the radiator that is in this car is off a 4-cylinder carbureted Toyota Corolla. It's very old. It's an old brass radiator. Yeah, it's just not keeping the temps down where I want them. It's running at about 110 degrees. It will push up to about 115 degrees when I sit at 110 k's on the highway, so it's simply running too hot. I knew it wasn't going to keep up, but it definitely got me past to get a roadworthy and everything, so that's getting replaced by this one. I am hoping it works really well because it's aluminium, which just seems to be the way to go with better cooling. It's physically larger, so it will let more air through as long as it fits in. But also, this is a radiator that is made for the 1JZ GTE. So that's a 2.5 litre twin turbo 6-cylinder engine. So if this is advertised to be able to cool a 1JZ, it should be able to cool a 1G GTE, which is its younger brother. So I'm gonna let this sucker cool down, and I'll see you in a few minutes to try and install this thing. Alright, doing this when it's hot is not a smart idea, so don't do what I'm doing. Well, it's out. So that's step 1 complete. Alright, so now that's dripping out. I'll start unbolting the front radiator, take off some hoses. I'll keep a towel under there because I know I'm going to get some residual spill. Jeez, she's hot. Mr. Obvious. Boy, this is much harder when the when you install the radiator and then you install all the bolts. Now, very hard to get to. We got it. So that side of the radiator's undone. Now I got to undo that there and that bottom one, and we'll try and pull this sucker out. Okay, what's going to make this a lot easier is taking this top radiator support piece off I've now just unlodged the radiator, but I can't lift it out because this is in the way. So that's going to come off. Which also means my brackets for the intercooler have to come off too. Ah, boy. All right, let's do this. So it's a bit bigger. I hope it fits. I guess we will find out. You'll come for the ride with me. I got a feeling this is going to be a tight fit. So I can actually put this radiator in a little bit more easily. I'm actually going to take off these intercooler pipes. They can be rerouted if need be. It's not the end of the world, but the radiator has to be in a particular spot. So these are going to come off, and fingers crossed I can slide that radiator in there and work out a way of mounting it in position. So off with the intercooler pipes. All right, it's a tight fit. We're going to work this out, but I just can't get this top to kind of like pop underneath this pipe. So I might have to remove this intercooler pipe here to get that to go underneath it. Once that goes under, this should drop down into position, and it gives me about 5mm clearance from the front pulley there. So that's very close, but we'll see. I think I need to make a little bit more clearance in here. I'm not happy with it being so close to that pulley on the front there. I wish I could actually take this off, but it's one unit. It's made for 3 belts. Oh well. So this little bracket here, if you can see on that angle there, this top rail meets up with that top rail over there, and that little bracket kind of sticks out about, geez, that's a good 20mm from there to there. I'm feeling like I might have to cut that out, just this little piece here, so that the radiator can sit much more forward and give me clearance to drop the top pipe underneath this intercooler pipe, and also give me more clearance for this front pulley here. So I think it's time to be very, very careful with the grinder and actually take out these 2 segments here. It'll still have enough strength in this top panel because of the support brace. That's gonna, I hope, I hope that's gonna remain there once the radiator fits. We'll see. But as far as fitment, front to back's concerned, I think it needs to be done. So I didn't really want to hack the front of this, just because I got wires everywhere and I don't want to accidentally hit something I shouldn't. But I think I got no choice. So wish me luck. Hopefully I don't muff it up. And that there is the first bit cut out. Don't ask me how I fit the grinder in there, but I managed to. And what that's done, hopefully you can see, that lower rail right there and this top rail are now flush. And that gives me a lot more room to fit the radiator in right there. So I have to do the same to the other side. I have covered the vehicle well. I didn't want any welding bits getting on my paint. That would be very annoying. That piece now has now been cut out. This one here already showed you. I just bent back a couple of little tiny extrusions that I think would be touching the radiator, so they're out of the way. I filed off my cuts so that they're not too sharp and bad for the radiator. So I'm gonna get it again, and fingers crossed we have enough width, enough space at the front, and then finally enough room on top so the bonnet can shut. All right, it's a heck of a lot better than what it was. I've got that all the way back, which gives me heaps of clearance between the flywheel and the radiator, you can see there, which is great. I still have an issue with this pipe. Is going to be touching that intercooler pipe there. What I'm thinking of doing is actually trimming that off a little bit, but leaving enough for a hose clamp to hold, and then recycling one of these elbows. This one's much better. Cutting that really close to that seam with enough space again for a hose clamp, and actually just making a little rubber seal with 2 hose clamps to give me an elbow. As long as the width of this plus the little bit extra, as long as that width fits between here and there, it'll work. I'm also going to just knock out a little bit of these ends where that white mark is. I've still got bolts further down to bolt the support rail, so that's sweet. I'm just going to knock these out a bit, just where those white marks are, so that the radiator can just fall forward a little bit and give me a little bit more room in the front. That's the plan. Underneath, it's just kind of resting on the lower support rail. I might have to get some little rubber grommets or something under there just so the aluminium's not sitting directly on the steel. So I'm going to get chopping there and there. I'm going to hack up this radiator because I'm never going to use it again anyway. I'll cut this one before I cut the brand new one over there. Chop that off and I'll see how much room I got to play with and see if my idea will work. Alright, this is looking a lot better. That extra 1.5 centimeters that's knocked back on that side has allowed a lot more room for this pipe. So me putting that elbow that I was talking about seems to be a viable option. This end here is really no issue at all. I just have to work out where it mounts on the bottom so that I can lift that lower pipe up a bit so I can actually attach this pipe. That pipe lines up perfectly in that spot already, so I don't have to change that, thank goodness. And still plenty of room for the electric fan, so things are looking good. I think before I start working out my mount points here and here, I really do think I need to do this elbow now, because if I make the mount points now and then the elbow doesn't quite fit, I have to redo it anyway. So I'm going to start chopping that first and then mock it up with what I've got, and if I think it's going to fit 100%, then I'll cut my brand new aluminium radiator up. Eek! A little bit nervous about how this is going to turn out, but I have faith. Alright, elbow has been cut. Not in the best condition, but we'll make it work. And I think it's going to work, so we're going to have enough space there to go underneath that return reservoir pipe, and leaving a bit of a burr or an edge here for a hose clamp to fit, and also having that there. I think we're good, and that'll give me clearance from the intercooler pipe right there. I think this is actually going to clear better than the original setup, which was rubbing on the original radiator. I'm going to cut up my new radiator. Wish me luck. And I would call that a success. 2 hose clamps there on super tight. It's not going to go anywhere, which is good. So now the temp sensor can go in line in that top hose still. I just need to get 1, 2, 3, 4 more hose clamps and a little bit more 36mm radiator hose. So that's going to work 100%, which is great. That's going to fit 100%. That's going to fit. So with the extra hacking that I've done, it's going to work. I'm really happy with that. Mounting it to the body will be something I'll work out a little bit later, but I don't think it's going to be too hard because these rails that run down here are flush with this panel. Same with the other side on there, so that's great. A couple of bolts and nuts, 2 top, 2 bottom, will hold that in place. There's still plenty of room at the back here for the fan, for the thermo fan. And the return line can just go straight back to the radiator overflow. So I'm pretty happy that that's in place. I was hoping to get it finished tonight, fill it with radiator fluid and go for a drive, but that ain't gonna happen as the store is shut where I want to buy my hoses from. I could use this hose, but I don't have the hose clamps, and without hose clamps it's completely pointless trying to make this work. But that was my biggest issue, was having that top elbow, or the pipe that came out of there, hitting. And she's tough as in place. It's not going anywhere. I don't want to take it apart again. It's tight, it's staying there. I don't know how long it's going to be before I get back to finishing this. I'm hoping tomorrow, but for you guys it'll be in a snap. And just like that, I've gone and grabbed myself a new upper hose, which I'll make work to go from there to there. Also some new hose clamps because they're going to be needed. So I'll continue on. Got to attach the bottom radiator hose, work out a way of mounting it up off the bottom of the chassis so it's not directly sitting on hard metal. Connect here to here, put my temp sensor in between it somewhere with a cut. There's plenty of room here to play around, so I'm really happy now. Before it was very cramped with the old radiator. Plenty of room to play around to make that work. I hope that this doesn't give way. I'm pretty sure it won't. I mean, they're pretty tight on there, but we'll find out. So, new radiator hose. Let's try and install it and then work out the way we're going to mount this to the actual chassis. That's going to work a treat. So that is ideal. I got the temp sensor in there facing down so that if there is any air up in this top radiator tube at the top and the temp sensor's top to bottom, the little pickup might not actually pick up the liquid temp. So having it facing down, the liquid will run over the actual temp sensor. So I'm going to have that facing down to get a more accurate result. I just got to squeeze my little tiny return pipe over that there, and there is just enough room to do so. So that'll be sweet, and I'll run that down, under, and back to the overflow. I haven't tightened that up yet because it's now time to work out mounting. So when I work that out, I'll show you. All right, so running through some ideas, and I've got a bolt hole here that I can use, and the same where that indicator relay is bolted there. And what I'm thinking of doing is using this hole here and also another one further down to make a triangular piece so that it's, you know, rigid and holds the weight of the radiator. So a small bolt and nut there and there, and then with a triangular piece to that bolt. Obviously from the top it will come out, it will go in, and then it will come back down this way, so it's like a Z piece, and that should be strong enough at least for the top supports, as long as I drill my holes in the right spots. With some, I've got 2 mil steel, so that'll be more than strong enough to hold this up. If I can get this right, that's going to be really, really strong supports for the left and the right hand side at the top. The bottom I'll work out in a minute to make a bracket for that. I do have some right there. There's a little tiny screw point, and also on the other side, which is not extruded, but there is a screw point down there. I can also make a little bracket, but I'll look at that later. But initially, if I can get my cuts right and my holes right, I'll be able to make a bracket to bolt on there and to bolt on there, and it should be more than strong enough. So I'm going to get cutting on that. See it in a minute and see if it works. And there we have some brackets. I've already drilled the holes, the mount holes there for that. You can see it's going to go in place like so and hold that nice and firm. Also the other one goes on this side like so, right there, and that will be bolted in a position, just lifted up a little bit off the bottom rail so that it's not sitting on itself. So I'm really happy. I'm going to give these just a quick coat of paint so they don't get all rusty on me, and install them. Alright, we are in. Knocked a little fin there, but it's not a big problem. It's only a fin, not a water channel. But the brackets are on, super tight, lifted up from the bottom of the lower support rail. And this side is also done. Again, I slipped a little bit there, which kind of sucks, but again, it's not going to affect much. So they're super strong. She's solid as, which is wonderful. Well, we have a fitted radiator. It's all plumbed back up again. Intercooler piping went on really well. Another thing too is my intercooler piping now clears the end of the radiator. Before that there was touching the corner of the old one. Now there's plenty of room there, which is wonderful. So that's in, thermofan's on, intercooler piping's all plumbed up, lower pipe is installed with the bung in it, the wiring is being rerouted underneath and tied on, the overfill thingamy-bob is in place as well. So what I'm going to do now is fill it with some fluid and turn it on and see how it runs. Fingers crossed, it's cooler than 110 degrees. I've filled up the radiator fluid. I'm actually just going to leave the cap off to make sure it flushes through properly. Let's start it. I guess there's only way of finding out. That's by turning the key. We're in neutral. What we're going to keep an eye on is this mofo right here. So previously it was getting up to 110, that mark there. It was creeping just past it as well. So I'm just going to let this car idle for quite a while, see where we're at. The automatic fan, I think, is supposed to switch on at around 95 or 98 degrees. We'll see what happens there. If it doesn't, that's if it gets that hot, of course. I hope it doesn't, but if it does get that hot and it doesn't switch on and it goes past it, then that would be a bit annoying. But I do have the manual fan switch there for me. So let's start her up and see if we've stuffed anything up. It's a cold start. So the radiator fluid is going through that right now because I have actually taken the thermostat out. I'm running a thermostatless engine at the moment, so the water pump is sending water right the way through the whole engine. So we're going to let this warm up. I think it will hit 80-90 degrees, no problem. And I guess we'll just see how we go. Fingers crossed there's no leaks in the radiator, because that would suck balls if there was. That seems to be flowing pretty well, and there's enough fluid in there at the moment, so I'm just going to chuck the cap back on, let it heat up, let it pressurize, and fingers crossed it works. Alright, we've been idling for a while, and temps are at, oh, wrong one, 79, we'll call that 80 degrees. It will go up over that, which is fine. What I might do is I might turn the fan on early to try and mimic kind of air running through it at speed, and see if we can keep it as low as possible, and see what this radiator can do with a single fan. So let's turn the fan on, the switch. So there, she's turned on. Sorry about the bad videoing today. Alright, fans are cranking, which is good. No leaks that I can see. Seems to be holding strong at the moment, which is good. Let's go check the temps again. We haven't budged. That's really good. Normally it would have gone up to about 90-95 by now. So let's just keep this running for a few more minutes. I'm going to really let it just idle out for quite a while. And we'll keep testing. Alright, so I've been sitting here with my foot on the accelerator, sitting at 2,500 RPM, which is my RPM when I'm doing about 110 on the highway. Probably a little bit more actually. That's probably about 115 k's an hour. At 110 k's, I think it sits at like 2.2 or something. But good news is, like, I've been doing this for a fair few minutes, just watching the temp, sitting here with my foot on the gas, and the temp's only just gone up and hit over 100. When I used to do that, like as a test on the highway, driving at 110 k's an hour at about 2000 RPM, with all of that airflow coming into the car, the temp would go right up to about 115 and it would sit there. And then when I'd slow back down to like 80 k's an hour, the temp would go back down to about 110 degrees. But sitting here revving it, it has stayed just above that 100 degree mark. I would guess that driving on the highway at speed is going to have a lot more air coming through that radiator, and the radiator is physically much larger. And because we did cut out those two side pieces, we're actually making use of the whole width of the radiator. I reckon we're going to notice a really good temp drop, which I'm excited about. So I'm going to turn this off, I'm going to go eat some KFC, and then we're going to take this for a test drive and we'll monitor the temps and see if it is actually a proper success or not. Well guys, either my temp sensor is broken or we have done it. I know it's wobbling right now and you can't really see very well, but that is sitting right on 90 degrees. That is extraordinary. So that's a drop of about, that's a drop of about 15 degrees because it was sitting on about 115. So I'm really, really happy with that. So I'm going to head back home, call that a success, and enjoy the drive without worrying about the temps. So guys, that's a big success. I'm over the moon about it. It's a huge drop in temperature, really. Going from, like I said, it used to sit on about 115, maybe even a touch higher when I'd be in heavy traffic, or when I'd be driving at about 110 k's an hour for maybe 5 minutes. It would actually creep up that high. The old radiator just couldn't cope. There's just no way. But this big thing managed to fit it in, and it's made a massive difference. So I think, yeah, like literally it didn't go anywhere near 100 degrees when I was driving, so that's really, really good. So I'm stoked. It's sat average about 90 degrees, right on that 90 degree mark. So that to me is a massive win. It's right where the temp should be operating for these engines, which is sweet. I think I've dodged a bullet in, possible engine damage with running this thing too hot. Now that the new radiator's in, that's wonderful. So I'll just close this. Squeak. So yeah, cheers for watching. I kind of don't recommend doing this radiator. It's just a lot of stuffing around, and you do have to chop the two sides of the front of the car, which is a bit annoying. I didn't really want to, but there was no other way this was going to fit. I would probably just recommend doing what I didn't do and just do the measurements a little bit better. Get slightly thinner radiator. Just an aftermarket job will be fine. I think the difference between a brass and an aluminium radiator is chalk and cheese. It makes a massive difference. So stoked. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm going to drive this thing to work tomorrow without a care in the world. So thanks for watching. Hope you've learnt something half useful today with heating. I know I have. I'm learning every day. But thanks so much. We'll catch you in the next one. Hopefully, there's not much more to do to this thing, but yeah, I'm bubbling on. Catch you later.